Hello BookTube, I'm Jonathan, and today I have 15 modern sci-fi books for you. Recently, I made a game based on a list of 25 essential sci-fi books, and you guys seem to really enjoy that. However, that list was focused a little bit more on classics. So, I put together a compilation based on a series of best of lists and awards winners for the most highly recommended modern sci-fi books. So here's how today's game is going to work. For each book on the list that you've read, you get 2 points. For each book on the list that you own a copy of but haven't read yet, you get 1 point. And at the end, I want you to post your score out of 30 in the comments. So just to clarify, this is a compilation list, not my own personal ranking, and I'll put the references in the description. So I'll be playing along, you guys can see if you can beat my score, and for each of the books that I've read, I'll be sharing my thoughts on them and letting you know which readers I think it might appeal to. So let's get started with number 15, Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. So I'm going to pick up 2 points here as I have read Children of Time and I absolutely love this one. It is a space opera and first contact story where we follow humans that are desperately trying to find a planet on which they can survive on, as well as following the evolution of a spider society. And I think Tchaikovsky brilliantly weaves together these two storylines in a way that I found to be very satisfying, both narratively and thematically. It's an interesting premise, and I think Tchaikovsky sticks the landing, because I particularly enjoyed the last 200 pages of this book. They had a big emotional impact on me. There are a few harder sci-fi elements in this book, but I think it's still quite readable. It's one that I personally enjoyed a lot, and if you haven't read it yet, I think it's definitely worth adding to your modern sci-fi list. Number 14, Pandora's Star by Peter F. Hamilton. So I'm going to pick up another 2 points here as I have read Pandora's Star, as well as the second book in the Commonwealth Saga duology, Judas Unchained. And this series is pretty epic. Each of the 2 books are around 1,000 pages long in the mass market paperback form, and I quite enjoyed them. The high points are pretty high. Peter F. Hamilton puts a lot of big ideas into this series, and there are some really interesting things to do with first contact. There's a great mystery. I think the way that he writes things out in space is really well thought out, and it's quite outside of our own experience, which really captured my imagination. In this book, a mission is put together in order to find out why a star has disappeared, and along the way, we have a lot of characters, a lot of storylines, and a lot of world building, which, if that's your kind of sci-fi, your kind of space opera, there's going to be a lot to sink your teeth into. But I think some people might find it to be a little slow, that Hamilton gets a little bit bogged down in the details, which, to be honest, I did feel a little bit at times, but in the end, I do think they all come together, and in the end, I feel like most of these storylines, most of the things that Hamilton put his time into, ended up at least somewhat paying off. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, go check it out and then come back and join us on Discord, because there's one pretty crazy chapter in particular that I think you're going to want to feel the need to talk about. Number 13, Altered Carbon by Richard K. Morgan. So I'm going to get 1 point for this one, as I haven't read it yet, but I did actually pick it up in a recent bookstore visit. I've been in a little bit of a cyberpunk mood recently. I read Snow Crash, and I've been craving some more cyberpunk, so I'm looking forward to trying Altered Carbon. I have watched the Altered Carbon TV show, and I quite enjoyed it, so I have a bit of a feel for what the book might be like in terms of it being rather heavy and gritty and quite violent, so it'll be interesting to see how the book compares. I really like that idea of kind of combining some mystery elements with the cyberpunk genre, so if you've read this one, let me know your thoughts on it and whether you think I'll enjoy it. Number 12, Ancillary Justice by Anne Leckie. So I'm going to pick up another 2 points here as I have read Ancillary Justice, and this is a space opera that follows an ancillary that was part of an AI spaceship as they go on somewhat of a journey of revenge. So I quite like this one, and I'm glad I read it, but so far I haven't felt compelled to continue the series. I think there are some interesting sci-fi concepts to do with artificial intelligence and connectivity, as well as some interesting themes to do with identity and social dynamics. But for me, the plot didn't quite hook me in, and I felt like the end of book 1 was relatively satisfying, but I didn't feel excited about continuing the series. So let me know your thoughts on this book, as well as if you've read the trilogy, whether you think I need to pick it back up. Number 11, The Road by Cormac McCarthy. I haven't read The Road, although I have watched the movie. I actually watched the movie on a date, and let me tell you, fantastic movie, horrible date movie. I don't know what I was thinking. It's pretty bleak, it's pretty dark, it's pretty depressing, and This is going to go into the kind of dystopian, post-apocalyptic subgenre of sci-fi, so I definitely need to read it at some point because I've heard a lot of great things. I enjoyed the film, and I have read Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy, and that was absolutely brilliant. I'm not sure I understood all of it, but it was brilliant. So when I'm in the mood for that kind of dark dystopian sci-fi, I'm definitely going to have to pick up The Road. Number 10, Blindsight by Peter Watts. So I'm going to pick up 2 points here as I have read Blindsight. I actually read this one relatively recently, and it left a pretty massive impression on me. So in Blindsight, we follow a team on a mission to track down a message detected in space. And this team is full of some characters that have different levels of intelligence and consciousness. So we have someone that can control artificially intelligent soldiers, we have someone that has half a brain, and we also have a vampire. At first, I found this one a little bit tough to get into because Watts doesn't hold your hand with the world building. But as I made my way through the book and some of the puzzle pieces started to fall into place, I became thoroughly engrossed. This is one of those books that focuses on some big ideas, and to be honest, this book left me absolutely shook. It's one of those ones that you finish and you're thinking about it a day later, a week later, a month later. It's really just left the wheel spinning. I can't even think of an analogy to convey how much Blindsight messed me up, but if you're looking for some hard sci-fi, some big ideas, and something that you could consider rather nihilistic, then perhaps Blindsight might hit for you. Number 9, Accelerando by Charles Stross. So I'm going to get 0 points here as I haven't read Accelerando, but it's one that I really want to pick up. It's quite high on my TBR because it sounds really cool. As apparently it is a hard sci-fi cyberpunk novel in which something is systematically dismantling the solar system, something beyond human comprehension. So I'm hooked by that mystery. I love stories to do with artificial intelligence, the singularity, and I've heard great things about this one. So if you have read Accelerando, let me know if you think that I will enjoy it as much as I hope I will. Number 8, Revelation Space by Alistair Reynolds. So I'm going to get 2 points here as I have read Revelation Space. I'm a big fan of Alistair Reynolds. House of Suns is one of my all-time favorite sci-fi books. Now I read Revelation Space recently and I quite liked it. Especially the last 150 pages, I felt like that was peak Alistair Reynolds, but leading up to that, I was still enjoying it, but for me, the story felt just a little bit flat, and this was Reynolds' first ever book, so you could tell that he has developed as a writer since writing Revelation Space. But overall, I enjoyed it, I'm glad I read it, and the ending of the book made me excited to continue the series. I will actually be starting the second book, Redemption Arc, in the next couple of weeks, so let me know if you've enjoyed Revelation Space, and if you haven't read it yet, join me. I'm just about to start book 2. Number 7, Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey. So that's another 2 points for me here, as I have read Leviathan Wakes, and I actually recently finished all 9 books in the Expand series. So in Leviathan Wakes, we follow 2 POVs, 2 storylines, one of which is a space opera storyline, and the other is a noir detective mystery storyline. So I really enjoyed the combination of these 2 subgenres of science fiction in what was a really fun and fast-paced storyline. Leviathan Wakes ended up being my second favorite in the series, so I think The Expanse gets off to a good start, and it comes to a somewhat of a satisfying conclusion, so I think you could potentially read just book 1 if you wanted to, but if you read it and you like it, good news, there's 8 more books for you to read. Number 6, The Windup Girl by Paolo Bacigalupi. So I'm going to get 0 points here as I haven't read The Windup Girl, but the premise for this one is that Amiko was bioengineered in order to serve others, but has now been abandoned on the streets of Bangkok. So this one, I believe, has some dystopian elements, and it sounds like it could be quite a heavy read. I've heard some positive things about this one, but also a few mixed reactions. So I haven't read it yet, but I do want to get to it at some point. If you have read The Windup Girl, let me know how high you think it should be on my TBR. Number 5, The Martian by Andy Weir. So we're back on track with another 2 points here, as I absolutely loved The Martian. I might even slightly prefer Project Hail Mary, but you can't go wrong either way. They're both phenomenal, and The Martian is a great one to start with. So in The Martian, we follow Mark Watney, an astronaut on Mars for whom anything that can go wrong does go wrong, and he has to use his knowledge of maths and science and physics in order to come up with MacGyver-esque solutions in order to the deadly problems that he faces. He also uses a rather self-deprecating and dark sense of humor in order to deal with the rather dire situations he finds himself in. I thought this one was funny, fast-paced, and had some interesting science. It's a great example of what modern sci-fi can be. Number 4, The Calculating Stars by Mary Robinette Kowal. So I get 0 points here as I haven't read The Calculating Stars, but this combines the historical fiction and post-apocalyptic genres as in 1952 a meteorite devastates the east coast of the United States. So I haven't heard a ton about this one on YouTube or on Discord, but that sounds like a pretty interesting premise to me. If I'm in the mood for ticking off another post-apocalyptic sci-fi book, perhaps I need to check this one out. If you have read it, let me know your thoughts on it. Number 3, Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. So this is another one where I have watched the movie, but I haven't read the book, so I'm going to get 0 points for Annihilation. I really enjoyed the movie. It was quite weird, it was quite trippy. It was an interesting adventure into the zone known as Area X that has been cut off from human civilization. To me, it felt like there were some influences from Roadside Picnic, as well as perhaps Solaris, and I was a really big fan of those two books, so I quite enjoyed the feel of the film. It'll be interesting to see how the book compares. To be honest, I have heard some mixed reactions to the book and the trilogy, so if you have read them, let me know whether you think I'll enjoy the book as much as the movie. Number 2, Old Man's War by John Scalzi. So I'm going to get another 2 points here as I have read Old Man's War, and this one has a great premise. Earth is at war with aliens, and instead of recruiting young soldiers to fight this battle, instead we recruit senior citizens. We take all of the knowledge and wisdom that they have accumulated throughout their lifetime and then give them fresh young bodies in order to go fight this battle with. This is military science fiction that reminded me a little bit of The Forever War and Ender's Game, but with the main characters being senior citizens. It also has somewhat of a sarcastic and dry sense of humor, and I found this one to be quite entertaining, but with also some pretty interesting sci-fi concepts, especially the ones that get introduced in the second half of the book. I felt pretty satisfied at the end of book 1, so I didn't feel compelled to continue the series, but this might be one that in the future I decide to pick back up. And number 1, The Three-Body Problem by Cixin Liu. And we finish off with 2 more points for The Three-Body Problem, the first book in one of my favorite series, the Remembrance of Earth's Past trilogy. So in The Three-Body Problem, strange things start happening to prominent scientists, and this might be linked to a secret mission that is sending messages out into space. So this is a harder sci-fi book, and the fact that the characters can be somewhat cold and dry might put off some readers, but I found the ideas in this book to be fascinating, and the series just gets bigger and better as it goes on. The plot developments in book 2, The Dark Forest, just had me absolutely captivated, and the ideas and concepts in book 3, Death's End, just scrambled my brain. Mind-blowing stuff, just absolute peak hard ideas sci-fi. So in the end, I scored a total of 20 out of 30, which is not bad, but sounds like I've got a couple of modern sci-fi books that I need to add to my TBR, and I hope this video also helped you find some new books that you might be interested in picking up as well. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, subscribe, it's free. And if you really enjoyed it, consider becoming a Patreon member, where you can become one of my robots, androids, or cyborgs like Nima and a New Eden. Thanks for watching, and you can find more sci-fi content over here.